This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
Very good morning. You're watching News9. I'm Karthik Malhotra, and of course, a lot of exciting stories coming up for you on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. Coming up first on the show, if you've been enamored by Deepinder Goyal's new theory of gravity making you age, well, the liver doctor has debunked that theory. We'll bring you those details on the show today. Also on the show, just 3 states in India have accounted for as much as 1/3 of total auto sales for Q2. We'll tell you which these 3 states are. And finally on the show, Cloudflare outage that impacted thousands of users yesterday who were unable to use platforms like X and ChatGPT. Well, Cloudflare now says that it has resolved the issue. These stories and more on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. That's right, you're watching Morning Brief at 9. But first up, let's bring you all the headlines that we're tracking for you this Wednesday morning. Zomato's parent Eternal's founder and CEO Deepinder Goyal's gravity aging hypothesis sparks debate as Dr. Cyriac Abby Philips, popularly known as the liver doc, counters with strong scientific criticism. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal says India-US partnership remains strong as trade talks progress, stressing that any deal must be fair, balanced and protect India's national interests. Piyush Goyal also launches a trade intelligence and analytics portal, calls for greater transparency in services data and urges industry to better leverage free trade agreements. It's not Delhi, but it's Gujarat, Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh that have driven 30% of India's auto sales in Q2 as buyers delay purchases ahead of GST 2.0 price cuts. Karnataka unveils a $1 trillion plan to upgrade Bengaluru, builds 9,000-acre AI city in Bidadi and develops second airport as Deputy Chief Minister D.K. Shivakumar highlights city's unmatched 25 lakh IT talent. Zoho's RTI rolls out end-to-end encryption for direct chats with mandatory 3-day transition window as the founder Sridhar Vembu promises major upgrades and new features. In global news, Google launches the Gemini 3 with deeper reasoning, sharper context understanding and seamless integration into its new AI-powered search experience. Reliance Consumer Products enters the pet food market with value-driven Veggies brand, deep discounts and ambitious plan to go national by 2027 amid India's booming pet care surge. News from the street, PhysicsWallah shares soar on debut, listing over 30% higher than IPO price and closing as much as 44% higher. The top story that we're bringing to you today is not from the world of policy or economics, but from the medical fraternity. Now, what if everyone watching right now had been living upside down this whole time? Not literally, but imagine a world where simply flipping your body could change how long you live. It sounds bizarre, right? Well, a new hypothesis making waves in the longevity world asks a provocative question. Is gravity aging us? Well, this isn't coming from the realm of science fiction or conspiracy forums. It is being discussed by researchers, longevity experts, and even people running some of India's largest companies. And one of them is Zomato or Eternal's founder, Deepinder Goyal. He's the founder of Eternal, but he's also now working on this new hypothesis in a new venture that he has started called Continue. But Deepinder Goyal says he's not talking as the CEO. He's talking as someone who, like many of us, wants to stay healthy, perform at peak levels and live a longer, more productive life. Now, his hypothesis begins with a simple but rather unsettling thought. He asks, what if humanity has overlooked a massive, obvious factor that affects aging, something so basic that it's been hiding in plain sight. Now, how does one live without gravity? How does one stay inverted? And does the name eternal come from this very concept, which pretty much implies live forever? Now, think of all the things people do today in the name of biohacking, ice baths, meditation, fasting, blood tracking, supplements, and pretty much everything that you put into your hybric chambers. Now, these things work, but they take time. And for many high-functioning people, the pursuit of health optimization ends up eating half their day. Even then, the improvements often slow down. So Deepinder Goyal started wondering, if we can design systems, machines, software to run more efficiently, why hasn't the human body found something similar? A hidden switch, a leverage point. Now, if such a switch existed, wouldn't thousands of years of human history have found it by now? Unless the answer was so close, so normal, that nobody thought to question it. And that's when a single word surfaced in his mind: gravity. Not metaphorical gravity, literal physical gravity, the invisible force pinning every organism to earth, to the ground. Now the question is, could gravity be a driver of aging? Search the scientific literature and you'll find plenty about genes, oxidative stress, and many more. But gravity, well, Deepinder Goyal says almost nothing. So his hypothesis begins with a simple anatomical fact. Your brain sits above your heart, and humans spend most of their lives upright, walking, sitting, standing, running, doing pretty much all the daily chores. Now, inverting Goyal's theory last evening, an Indian doctor, Cyriac Abby Philips, popularly called the liver doc, has pointed out that every hypothesis discussed on Goyal's website has already been proven wrong through rational scientific scrutiny. According to the liver doc, the so-called gravitational theory of aging is an oversimplified single cause explanation that fundamentally clashes with a well-established multifactorial scientific understanding of aging. Now, the theory claims that human aging is primarily driven by a lifelong decline in cerebral blood flow to key brain regions such as the hypothalamus, caused by the constant pull of Earth's gravity on an upright human body. But this liver doc, Dr. Phillips, notes that this hypothesis is not only unsupported by rigorous scientific evidence, it is contradicted by extensive physiological, cellular, and molecular research. The liver doc also adds that Goyal's Continue project makes a basic category error by confusing a physical force, gravity, with the intricate biological process involved in aging. And the evidence used to back this theory, from astronaut studies to bat longevity to human height correlations, relies on misinterpreted data, questionable correlations, and clear logical fallacies. So the liver doc pretty much debunking the viral post by Deepinder Goyal on gravity having any effect on aging. Of course, we will wait to see where this debate from here rages on. Moving on now, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said the India-US partnership remains strong, stable, and expanding across multiple sectors, and that there is no reason for concern about the direction of the bilateral relationship. Now, speaking at an Indo-American chamber event, Goyal highlighted that the friendship between the two countries is rooted in democratic values, diversity, and shared development goals. He said the US continues to see India as a trusted partner, and both sides are committed to strengthening trade and commercial ties. But he also noted that a broad partnership like this moves at different speeds across different areas, and India must ensure negotiations remain fair and balanced to safeguard interests of domestic stakeholders, from farmers to fishermen to small industries as well as local businesses. On the proposed India-US trade deal, Goyal said talks are progressing and India will only sign an agreement that protects national interest. Listen in.
Assure all the distinguished participants that just like the rest of the world, the US also shares a strong bond with India. They see India as a trusted partner. We are both equally committed to working to expand trade and commerce between the two countries. And when the deal becomes fair, equitable, balanced, you will hear good news.
And staying with updates from the Commerce and Industry Minister, Piyush Goyal also launched the government's new Trade Intelligence and Analytics Portal, a platform he said will transform how India understands and uses trade data. Now, speaking at the event, Goyal urged industry players to analyze service sector trade data more closely, calling it a black box with very little validated insights available today. He said the new portal will help exporters make better use of India's free trade agreements and open up opportunities in global services, from Germany's need for 90,000 workers to growing demand for caregivers in Europe and Japan. Goyal stressed the need for greater transparency, saying such data should not remain confined to the Commerce Ministry alone. Built by the Department of Commerce, the platform integrates global and national databases and offers over 270 analytics, giving real-time insights on trade trends, export opportunities, and competitor analysis for importers, exporters, startups, as well as the micro, small, and medium enterprises. New data from the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, or SIAM, shows that just 3 states out of 29 in India, and these 3 states being Gujarat, Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh, together accounted for nearly 1/3 of all auto sales in the country during the July to September period this year. Now, that's even before GST 2.0 kicked in and lowered prices across segments from scooters to SUVs. In total, India sold over 10.39 lakh cars and 55.62 lakh two-wheelers in Q2. Now, Maharashtra led car sales with 1.3 lakh units, nearly 13% of the market. Uttar Pradesh topped two-wheelers with 6.93 lakh units. That's about 12.5% of total sales. But Gujarat was the standout performer, ranking among the top 3 across every segment: cars, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, as well as commercial vehicles, highlighting broad-based demand in the state. Overall car sales, however, dipped in Q2 as many customers held off purchases until GST rates were implemented on September 22nd. Now, under the new structure, GST now sits at 18% for small cars and 40% for the bigger ones. Now, Karnataka's Deputy Chief Minister D.K. Shivakumar announced the state is undertaking a massive upgrade of Bengaluru's infrastructure, backed by investments of more than 1 trillion rupees. That's 1 lakh crore rupees. Speaking at the opening of the Bengaluru Tech Summit 2025, he announced plans to build a brand new IT hub in Bidadi, a 9,000-acre AI city that will include residential layouts for NRIs and an international complex for global companies. Shivakumar highlighted Bengaluru's tech strength, noting the city is home to nearly 25 lakh IT professionals, calling it a talent pool unmatched anywhere in the world. He also revealed that the state is drawing up plans for a second airport to support the region's growing needs. And in a move to better assist non-resident Indians, Karnataka will set up a dedicated NRI secretariat. Listen in.
Welcome them. I assure to all the participants and the people of this talented world, where we are encouraging in every sector. You know that all the policies were being from the day one were here, and the world leaders every day meet me, speak to me. They want to invest. They want to come to Bangalore. They will start investing it. And a new IT city also is being planned in the greater Bangalore near Bidadi.
From India's IT city, let's move on to a made in India IT product. Well, Zoho-backed messaging app Outage, that was in the news recently for being among the most downloaded apps, has now rolled out end-to-end encryption for all direct chats. The platform announced the upgrade on social media, urging users to upgrade to the latest version immediately. Zoho founder and the Chief Research Officer Sridhar Vembu said the encryption feature is part of a major transition with more features coming soon. Users will only be able to exchange encrypted messages if both sides upgrade the app, and older chat sessions will be archived once the new encrypted channel is activated. Outage says this will be a 3-day transition phase before encryption becomes mandatory across the platform. Group chats will get encryption in coming weeks too. And in more stories from the world of technology, globally, Google has unveiled Gemini 3, its latest and most advanced AI model yet, and it's coming straight to the new AI mode in Google Search. In a blog post, CEO Sundar Pichai said the Gemini ecosystem is rapidly expanding, with the Gemini app now hitting as many as 650 million monthly users. That's 70% of cloud customers leveraging Google's AI tools and 13 million developers building on its generative models. Google says Gemini 3 is designed to understand nuance, context, and intent far better than before, able to peel apart the layers of complex problems and deliver responses that are smart, concise, and direct. The Pro version, it adds, works like a true thought partner, helping users break down dense scientific ideas, generate code for detailed visualizations, and even spark creative brainstorming. Reliance Consumer Products is gearing up for a big push into India's booming pet food market, and it's doing it the Reliance way, which is aggressive pricing. According to reports, the company's new brand, Waggies, will undercut major rivals by 20 to 50%, mirroring the value-first strategy Reliance used with Campa Cola. Now, Waggies will first hit general trade and semi-urban stores across key Tier 2 markets. The company already prices its products significantly lower than competitors across soft drinks, juices, staples, and more. A strategy that's focused and has forced many brands to step up promotions and trade margins. None of Reliance Consumer Products Limited products are national yet, but Director T. Krishnakumar has said the goal is a pan-India portfolio by March of 2027, targeting as many as 600 million mass-market consumers and partnering closely with neighborhood kirana stores. Meanwhile, India's pet care market is exploding, projected to double to $7 billion by 2028, with pet ownership rising sharply over the past 5 years. And with that, we will slip into a very short break. But coming up on the other side of the break, we'll tell you all about the PhysicsWallah IPO, grows valuation almost doubling since listing. And of course, the mood of the market today, especially with the second day of tech stocks in the US crashing. Is there going to be an impact on India like we've seen on India's Asian peers? We'll get to that after this short break.
लाख का हॉस्पिटल बिल है, इतने पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे?
पैसों की चिंता आप मत कीजिए पापा।
मैम, सर का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस क्लेम अप्रूव हो गया है।
आप
पॉलिसी बाजार
हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस क्लेम में हमेशा आपके साथ। पॉलिसी बाजार, 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
ये बेस्ट है सर।
हमेशा वाला क्यों नहीं?
मिश्रा जी, आपके लिए फूलों की बरसात, बिरला ओपस एश्योरेंस देने के लिए।
मतलब प्रोडक्ट वारंटी?
ये एक्स्ट्रा है। 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे।
वापस करके देंगे?
वो भी फ्री। पेंटिंग में पहली बार बिरला ओपस एश्योरेंस। रजिस्टर करो birlaopus.com पर।
जी, आपने भारत कनेक्ट का नाम सुना है?
शादी वादी कराना है क्या?
शादी नहीं, 5 लाख एजेंट्स की मदद से बिल पेमेंट्स पॉसिबल बनाते हैं।
ओ,
जैसे अभी किया।
शाबाश।
आप हमें जानते नहीं पर मानते जरूर हैं। हम हैं भारत कनेक्ट।
आराम से आराम से।
हाँ।
सामान देना भैया।
अब आगे क्या करना है? वो पिट्टू की पर्ची में देखो ना।
पर्ची?
देखो कहाँ गई पर्ची?
नमस्ते
जी।
हाँ? मुझे पता है वो पर्ची में क्या लिखा होता है। आप चलिए मेरे साथ। व्हील चेयर। पर्ची में ये तो लिखा ही होगा कि सीधे फ्लाइट में नहीं चढ़ना है, थोड़ा घूम के जाना है। अब पर्ची में शॉपिंग की बात तो जरूर लिखी होती है। थोड़ी पेट पूजा की बात कोई पर्ची में ना लिखे, ऐसा हो सकता है? टिफिन लाया।
थैंक यू।
अरे पर्ची मिल गई।
पर्ची में तो ये सब लिखा ही नहीं था।
हम है ना आपकी पर्ची।
भीड़ में जो थाम ले।
सिर्फ वर्ल्ड क्लास एयरपोर्ट्स नहीं चलाते हैं, आपके सफर में हम सफर बन जाते हैं। अदानी, हम करके दिखाते हैं।
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
Some sounds never leave. They wait to be found again. Inspired by humanity, powered by innovation, Taiwan excellence.
The GOAT or Macross satire is back. Cyrus Roja. From politics to pop culture, from your WhatsApp forwards to breaking news, nothing and no one is safe.
Relax, guys, relax. I only roast the truth, and the truth is always hilarious. Too much pressure.
Get ready for news caustic, bold, sharp, unfiltered, 100% Cyrus.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9, and let's get you all the action from the Lal Street. But before that, all the action that happened in the US overnight on the stock markets. Well, US stocks again for the second day consecutively ended much lower, and look at the Nasdaq figures, which would be on your screen soon. In fact, Nasdaq had seen a massive bloodbath yesterday again in the Magnificent Seven, the big tech stocks including Nvidia, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon as well as Tesla. 5 of the big tech stocks in the red yesterday, and significantly in the red. In fact, Amazon was down more than almost, in fact, 4.5%. Nvidia and Microsoft had both closed near 3% lower. Meanwhile, the only outliers were Google, which was up marginally again, back into the buying spree, partly by account of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, which had made massive investment announcements in the company, and Apple pretty much ended the journey flat. And this sort of big tech ripple effect is also seen in Asian markets this morning. In fact, even the Nikkei 225 had opened marginally in the red before inching up about 0.4 of a percentage point. But pretty much all of Asia seems to be reeling under some pressure this morning. The Hang Seng is down about 0.5%. Taiwan's TAIEX is down about 0.4 of a percentage point, almost exactly the same number for South Korea's Kospi. Meanwhile, Shanghai Composite Index absolutely flat this morning, and that flatness is also seen on the Indian markets. Let's pull up the charts and look at the Sensex and Nifty figures this morning. Remember, yesterday was a bit of a scary day for markets. It was spooked by what was happening in the US, but there seems to be a more flattish tone visible in the markets this morning. You've got the Nifty 50 still well below the 26,000 level. In fact, just about struggling to maintain the 25,900 odd levels, falling since its opening this morning. Sensex, meanwhile, is just about above the 84,600 odd levels this morning. But the index, in fact, the Nifty 50 heat map, if you pull up the Nifty 50 heat map, you'll see that the index is giving you some sort of mixed cues this morning. You've got the energy stocks bleeding this morning, but there is some respite seen surprisingly in the IT sector. Meanwhile, the auto sector is absolutely flat, and the banking sector seems mixed this morning, albeit mostly in the red. We've got Avinash Gorakshakar, Head of Research, Profit Mart Securities, joining us this morning. Good morning, Avinash. Pleasure having you back with us here on News 9. First up, let's talk about the global markets. There is this theory about the AI bubble and potentially the AI bubble likely to bust. In fact, you've also heard from Sundar Pichai saying that there's going to be a lot of trouble in case the AI bubble is indeed a bubble. And we are seeing this massive selling happening on the Magnificent Seven stocks. How dark do you think that story could turn out to be if it indeed is a bubble?
Yeah, good morning, Karthik. I think clearly yesterday's fall in the US market was triggered by the AI stocks. And I think one reason for the sell-off was obviously because valuations have now reached a level where I feel that they look little unreasonable and unsustainable. And I think Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, has also commented that there is a lot of irrationality now in the valuations of such AI companies. So I think whether the bubble will explode in the very short term or going forward, one thing is very clear that these kind of valuations are difficult to be sustained, and in case there is some problem in the US markets, that could obviously extend over to other markets also. So I think Google himself, the CEO himself has said that could impact their business also. So I think to a large extent, I think it would be US driven, because in India there are very few AI companies which are direct plays, and that's probably one of the reasons why FII flows have reduced. One theory in the market is that there are not many AI opportunities in Indian markets, and that's the reason not much flows actually came here. But if at all the AI bubble goes out completely, then I think you're going to see a lot of flows again coming to emerging markets like India. Of course, there could be a short-term aberration even in emerging markets like India. But I think here we have a very strong manufacturing base. Most importantly, I think Piyush Goyal yesterday has commented very clearly that the trade deal is very near to get completed. So, if that happens, then the markets would obviously get a big sentimental booster, especially for the Indian markets. So net, I think for the US markets, it's going to be a little volatile as well as turbulent. But for the Indian markets, I don't think you're going to see any major sell-off because of this factor.
So let's just stay on the US markets for a minute longer, Avinash. And in your opinion, with all the spooking out of investors when it comes to the Magnificent Seven, the big tech stocks in the US, would you call it consolidation or would you call it fear at this moment?
No, it is fear. Basically, in the US markets, I think people who have made money in the AI segment have benefited significantly. But I think if at all something goes wrong, then I think a lot of wealth and a lot of money and capital is going to be wiped out. And that is the fear which is now prevailing in the US markets. I think clearly AI stocks have jumped significantly beyond their intrinsic worth. And that is probably the reason why the markets are edgy. Upside now looks to be fairly limited, but the downside seems to be quite large. If at all any crisis happens, then I think the AI stocks will be battered down quite significantly.
All right, now let's shift focus to the Indian markets. You had touched upon it. Now, the fact that India does not really have a direct linkage with the big tech stocks, and India's sort of, work in the AI domain is still fairly limited, to put it mildly. Do you think this sort of meltdown in the US is going to bode well for India's IT sector, given the fact that we are still services oriented and we are seeing some sort of a green shoot, if I can call it that, in the IT pack today? And that's a rarity, given that overall the sentiment of the market is fairly down.
Yeah, I think if you look at the valuations of most of the IT companies, these appear to be fairly attractive and reasonable because they have beaten down from their 52-week highs. And most importantly, Karthik, if you see the balance sheets, the cash flows are strong, the cash position is very strong. And all these Indian companies, IT companies, are sitting on a very healthy order book. If you look at Infosys, one of the largest buybacks of 18,000 crores. Again, if you look at numbers from HCL Tech, Coforge in the Q2 numbers, I think despite being not a very great, quarter, period, I think the quarter performance was far too better what the market expected. And I think, going forward, looking at that kind of traction expected post the India-US trade policy happens, you're going to see a lot of US deals getting signed up, which are now, almost there for a long time in the pipeline. So I think, yes, Indian IT companies could benefit, but of course, we may not see the immediate impact coming in. But over the next, couple of quarters, definitely we could see little better kind of, order wins and better kind of margin accretion, at least for the next financial year.
All right, so that's the view on the IT sector. Let's pivot now to the BFSI sector. And again, there are expectations that RBI is going to go ahead and cut another 25 basis points in the December MPC meet. I don't know what your belief or theory on that is, because inflation numbers have come out fantastic, absolutely. So given that there could be potentially a rate cut of 25 basis points at least in December, how do you think the BFSI sector is poised from here on?
No, I think the rate cut looks very much possible, although the retail inflation number, Karthik, has been surprisingly very low. Now, there are two schools of thought. Most people are saying that this kind of retail inflation is not good because it shows that demand is not growing. There are another, people who are saying that a rate cut now is definitely warranted. I stay in the camp where possibly a rate cut will definitely boost up the Indian industry, and I think it may be possible. As far as the BFSI segment is concerned, I think the biggest beneficiary would be the banks, the housing finance companies, the NBFCs. I think within the banks, we continue to like the PSU banks, something like an SBI, Bank of Baroda, Canara Bank, smaller banks like Bank of Maharashtra, a federal bank. So I think, there are many choices available, and I think the Q3 number is going to surprise the market because Q2 was definitely better than Q1. And Q3 will actually reflect the full impact of the GST cuts. In fact, the government has very clearly indicated that to boost the consumption, liquidity has to be provided by the banks. And I think this is a busy season period. So I think you're going to see a good number of banks, especially the public sector banks doing well. On the private sector banks, we continue to like ICICI Bank. But I think here also the numbers in the Q2 were not very great, but yet overall a steady performance in a challenging period.
All right, steady performance in a challenging atmosphere. Let's move now to the defensive pack, which are the FMCG stocks. And yesterday we saw that pretty much the entire FMCG pack was in the red. But today, are we seeing some value buying? Is there any other intrinsic reason why HUL and Nestle are so healthily in the green this morning?
So I think, my sense is that GST cuts actually got implemented from 22nd September, Karthik, and a lot of FMCG companies reported that their dealers had got old stocks. So, to do the adjustment, it took some time. So you could probably see volume growth kicking in, good amount of revenue growth in value terms also coming in, because this time, fortunately, apart from the rate cuts and the GST cuts, the monsoon has been much better than what expectations have been. Rural demand is again picking up. So I'm quite hopeful that the third quarter would be a much more stronger quarter. In fact, Lever in its conference call update clearly mentioned that the October to December period could be a much stronger period in terms of volume growth. So I think, that is probably the reason the markets are looking forward that Q3 could be a better kind of period, where both volume growth as well as value growth could come in a much better way.
All right. Stay with us, Avinash. I also want to talk to you about the IPO buzz which was on the Lal Street. And of course, it has all turned out to be fairly well, at least for not just Grow, but also for PhysicsWallah. In fact, PhysicsWallah has made a strong debut yesterday. The EdTech firm's shares have settled 44% higher than the IPO price, closing at about 157 rupees or so on the NSE. And that's ending about 8% above the opening price. Now, so of course, PhysicsWallah is one part of the story. There's also the story of Grow, and Grow has also seen massive gain. In fact, I was reading that as much as 94% gain ever since it listed, and just yesterday alone, the Grow stock was up. In fact, it ended the day about 7% higher, and this was the 5th day of trading gains. Since its IPO, which was announced for subscription at 100 rupees, it has grown more than 90%. And this has overall taken the market cap of Grow to about 1.1 lakh crore rupees or so. So, Avinash, this IPO season has been absolutely fantastic. Not just Lenskart, which started off with so much controversy around it, but eventually sort of, held on to its own. And then we've seen Grow, and now we're seeing PhysicsWallah. What should the retail investor strategy be when it comes to participating in the IPO market and then staying put with those stocks that they get?
No, I think, Karthik, any investor who's made 90% gain in a stock like Grow in just about 7 or 8 days, I think should consider himself very lucky.
Okay.
Because I think, 90% gain in such a short period warrants that at least some part of the profit should be encashed, because beyond a particular level, you're going to see a little bit of profit booking also coming in.
Right.
The law of gravity always says that whatever goes up and goes down very fast actually, corrects also very quickly. And PhysicsWallah, of course, is a very niche business, a very strong business model. And I think, one thing which I would like to tell your viewers is that don't go by the oversubscription levels. PhysicsWallah was subscribed by just about 2 times, but still it got a good response because the business inherently is very good. I think at this level also, if investors take at least a 12 to 18 month call, I think good money can be made in a company like PhysicsWallah. As far as Grow is concerned, I think at least book partial profit because, at some point of time, you could be seeing a little bit of selling pressure also.
But do you think this case, and I want to come back to Grow specifically, do you think this course of 90% higher from listing day, was it a case of the company actually undervaluing itself partly? While I understand that there could be some profit booking now with a 90% gain in 7 days, which to my sort of memory is unheard of. But do you think the company, maybe when it went in for IPO, was undervalued and did not really realize its true potential?
No, I think the IPO was fairly priced, Karthik. I think at 100 rupees it was a bargain. I think considering the fact that it's the number one online broker ahead of Zerodha. And most importantly, the markets are giving it a premium for the simple reason that they believe that incremental client additions for Grow are going to be much better than Zerodha and the other online players. And I think Grow has also commented very clearly. The management has said that they are not going to just do retail broking. They're also looking at very high niche areas, profitable segments like wealth management. So, all these things are making the investors, especially the large, investors are quite excited about the growth prospects of the company. Plus, the management is very aggressive. It's a young management which has scaled up the business very well. But as everyone is aware, Karthik, at some point of time, a stock which moves up from 100 to 180 or 190 in just about 6-7 days, we might see a little bit of corrective, kind of price correction. Nevertheless, we are positive on the longer term, but in the short term, definitely some profit booking could be expected.
All right. And final question on PhysicsWallah. Of course, you were mentioning that, of course, this sector, if you look at PhysicsWallah, it comes from that edtech sector and potentially among the only sort of profitable, thriving companies, given the fact that we all remember what happened with Byju's, even though now there are new players in the fray and some old players in the fray to pick up whatever is left of Byju's. But given that this sector was marred in controversy, was marred with the ethics issues, the fact that a company like PhysicsWallah has pretty much impressed Dalal Street and impressed investors, what should the strategy really be for investors? Do you see a massive upside in scaling up operations for PhysicsWallah, given that pandemic is now pretty much long forgotten history?
No, I think, Karthik, the pandemic obviously opened up a lot of doors for online companies. But I think if you look at the content and the pricing strategy which PhysicsWallah has adopted, they are one of those players which have priced their products very competitively. They approach the mass market with a clear focus on content. And I think, at the end of the day, they have managed to actually get into the pockets of the online community, which is a mass market for them. So my sense is that over the next 2 years, the management has clearly indicated that there are many more new initiatives which the management would like to do on the online side, introduce new products, introduce new kind of, revenue kind of streams for them. So to that extent, somebody who wants to take a longer term call, at least the next 12 to 18 months, of course, the management has to deliver on the numbers. Once the stock gets listed, the market should be looking at every quarter number. So I think if the management delivers on the numbers and if they keep up to the expectation, then I think definitely some further re-rating is possible. But I think look at it from a medium to long term.
All right, a medium to long-term perspective is warranted on PhysicsWallah. Avinash Gorakshar, that's all we have time for. But a fantastic conversation, and thank you so much for your time with us this morning. And with that, we will slip into another short break. But before that, global headlines that we're tracking for you this morning. US President Donald Trump rolls out a grand welcome for Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, dismissing all allegations over the 2018 killing of former Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi and elevating Riyadh's strategic status. Donald Trump says Washington is working to approve high-end AI chip exports to the Saudi kingdom as MBS vows to boost Saudi investment in the US to $1 trillion, signaling a deepening tech and economic partnership. US lawmakers overwhelmingly back public disclosure of the long-sealed Epstein files, a watershed moment in a case that has rattled domestic politics, law enforcement, and America's elite circles. Google CEO Sundar Pichai says no company will be spared if the artificial intelligence boom bursts, amid soaring valuations and fears that the industry is overheating. NVIDIA, the $5 trillion chip maker at the heart of the world's AI revolution, to report earnings on Wednesday in one of the market's most watched moments of the year. A massive Cloudflare failure knocks thousands of websites, including X and ChatGPT, to go offline worldwide yesterday, sending the American internet provider's shares tumbling as services struggle to recover. But Cloudflare says its services are now back online. Ukraine seeks unprecedented climate damage compensation from Russia for carbon pollution caused by the long-standing conflict. marking the first claim of its kind in global conflict history. And the European Union prepares sweeping reforms to AI and data privacy laws aiming to cut regulatory red tape and help European firms compete with Chinese as well as US tech giants. And 40 years after the launch of Windows 1.0, Bill Gates reflects on Microsoft's legacy that transformed computing and defined a generation of tech innovation. These stories on the other side of the break. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
लाख का हॉस्पिटल बिल है, कितने पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे?
पैसों की चिंता आप मत कीजिए पापा।
मैम, सर का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस क्लेम अप्रूव हो गया है।
आप
पॉलिसी बाजार
हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस क्लेम में हमेशा आपके साथ। पॉलिसी बाजार 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
लाइफ जब भी आगे बढ़ने का मौका दे तो अपनी सुपर पावर, अपना गोल्ड यूज करिए और IIFL फाइनेंस से गोल्ड लोन लीजिए। IIFL फाइनेंस करता है सीधी बात।
आराम से आराम से।
हाँ।
सामान देना भैया।
अब आगे क्या करना है? वो पिट्टू की पर्ची में देखो ना।
पर्ची?
देखो कहाँ गई पर्ची?
नमस्ते
जी।
हाँ, मुझे पता है वो पर्ची में क्या लिखा होता है। आप चलिए मेरे साथ। व्हील चेयर। पर्ची में ये तो लिखा ही होगा कि सीधे फ्लाइट में नहीं चढ़ना है, थोड़ा घूम के जाना है। अब पर्ची में शॉपिंग की बात तो जरूर लिखी होती है। थोड़ी पेट पूजा की बात कोई पर्ची में ना लिखे, ऐसा हो सकता है? टिफिन लाए।
थैंक यू।
अरे पर्ची मिल गई।
पर्ची में तो ये सब लिखा ही नहीं था।
हम है ना आपकी पर्ची।
भीड़ में जो थाम ले।
सिर्फ वर्ल्ड क्लास एयरपोर्ट्स नहीं चलाते हैं, आपके सफर में हम सफर बन जाते हैं। अदानी, हम करके दिखाते हैं।
Welcome back. You're watching News9. This is Morning Brief at 9. On to all the global stories, and let's begin with the meeting between US President Donald Trump and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. US President Donald Trump offered a full-throttle defense of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Tuesday, rejecting accusations that the Saudi leader ordered the 2018 killing of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. Trump honored the Saudi royal with a fly-past and a lavish dinner in Washington, D.C. and formally named Riyadh as a major non-NATO ally. Take a look.
U.S. President Donald Trump rolled out the red carpet Tuesday for Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. In his first White House visit in more than 7 years, Saudi Arabia's de facto ruler sought to further rehabilitate his global image after the 2018 killing of U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi, while deepening ties with Washington. During questions in the Oval Office, Trump defended bin Salman on the topic.
A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen, but he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that.
That effectively contradicts the conclusions of U.S. intelligence agencies, who concluded that bin Salman approved the capture or killing of Khashoggi. Bin Salman has denied ordering the operation, but acknowledged responsibility as the kingdom's de facto ruler. He also addressed the killing to reporters on Tuesday.
We've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that, and it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
Topics discussed between the two leaders included security ties, civil nuclear cooperation, and multi-billion-dollar business deals with the kingdom. Trump announced an agreement that Saudi Arabia would invest $600 billion in the United States, while the Saudi Crown Prince promised to up that investment to $1 trillion. It all underscores how much of a priority Trump has made of ties with Saudi Arabia, as uproar over Khashoggi fades. Andrew Lieber is a political science assistant professor at Tulane University.
I think the Trump administration is much more transactional with respect to Saudi Arabia. As with the first term for President Trump, there's really no emphasis on human rights. So that's much less of an obstacle for this relationship.
Trump also said on Tuesday that the U.S. would sell F-35 stealth fighter jets to Saudi Arabia, in a similar arrangement it has with Israel, in what Trump described as a defense agreement. The move marks a significant policy shift, which could alter the military balance in the Middle East.
Well, US President Donald Trump also said on Tuesday that his administration is working to approve the sale of advanced American AI chips to Saudi Arabia, a move that would mark a significant shift in Washington's export policy and expand the kingdom's access to cutting-edge US tech. In response, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman announced that Saudi Arabia plans to boost its investments in the United States to $1 trillion, underscoring deepening economic and strategic ties between the two countries. Listen in.
Saudi is going to be investing at least $600 billion, and that means investments in plants, in companies, money on Wall Street, and what it really means for everybody that really counts is jobs, a lot of jobs.
Approved the export licenses for advanced chips to Saudi Arabia, the export licenses?
We are working on that. We're negotiating that right now.
I believe, Mr. President, today and tomorrow we're going to announce that we are going to increase that $600 billion to almost $1 trillion of investment, real investment and real opportunity by details in many areas. And the agreement that we are signing today in many areas in technology, in AI, in earth materials, magnet, etc., that will create a lot of investment opportunities.
US lawmakers overwhelmingly voted to release government files on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein on Tuesday, a major step towards public disclosure in a case that has shaken politics, law enforcement and America's elite circles. Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act with near unanimous support requiring the publication of all unclassified records tied to the investigation. Epstein's network and his death in jail officially ruled a suicide. The lawmakers say releasing the files is essential given that more than 1,000 alleged victims are linked to the case.
Well, Mr. President, Donald Trump has tried to cover up for Jeffrey Epstein long enough. It's time that the Senate finish the job to finally compel the Department of Justice to release the Epstein files. The Senate has now passed the Epstein bill as soon as it comes over from the House. I yield the floor.
Google CEO Sundar Pichai warned that no tech company will escape unhurt if the global artificial intelligence boom collapses. With company valuations skyrocketing and investment levels surging, Pichai said fears of an AI bubble are real and the fallout could be widespread across the industry. Take a look.
No company will be left unscathed if the artificial intelligence boom collapses. That was the warning from the CEO of Google owner Alphabet, Sundar Pichai. He made the claim during a BBC interview published Tuesday.
No company is going to be immune, including us. If you overinvest, we'll have to work through that phase.
Pichai said he thought Google could cope if a possible bubble burst and further called the current wave of AI investment an extraordinary moment. While he said there might be some elements of irrationality in the market, Pichai was positive about the future for AI technology.
It's also true when we go through these investment cycles, there are moments we overshoot, right, collectively as an industry. We can look back at the internet right now. There was clearly a lot of excess investment, but none of us would question whether the internet was profound or did it drive a lot of impact. It's fundamentally changed how we work digitally as a society. I expect AI to be the same.
Analysts have heavily discussed whether AI valuations are sustainable. Worries about that have begun to weigh on broader markets in the US, while British policymakers have also flagged bubble risks. Alphabet shares have surged about 46% this year. Investors have bet on its ability to compete with ChatGPT maker OpenAI. Alphabet pledged $6.5 billion in September to invest in the UK's AI infrastructure and research over the next 2 years. Pichai also told the BBC Google would begin training models in Britain.
Staying with the subject of artificial intelligence, Wall Street's massive bets on AI face a major test on Wednesday when Nvidia reports its latest results. Investors will be watching closely for any signs of exaggerated concerns about an AI bubble. Take a look.
U.S. stocks started Tuesday in the red as concerns about lofty equity valuations intensified. Mega-cap tech stocks led the decline, including those of AI-related companies such as chip powerhouse NVIDIA. It reports earnings after the closing bell on Wednesday, and the results are seen as a litmus test for the AI-driven rally that has pushed markets to record highs this year. Market participants will be hanging on every word from CEO Jensen Huang on the company's outlook, including Wedbush Securities Managing Director Dan Ives.
It's a Super Bowl for tech earnings. I mean, NVIDIA and the godfather of AI, Jensen, that's the foundation of the AI revolution. We expect robust numbers that show demand accelerating, not just for NVIDIA chips, but overall demand in the AI revolution.
One chief investment strategist tells Reuters that investors will be reviewing the results with a fine-tooth comb, looking for any sort of cracks and scrutinizing the guidance to see if this is the beginning of a potentially deeper problem. Ives says he thinks investors are missing the larger picture.
In my opinion, investors are underestimating the scale and scope of what this is going to look like with robotics, with autonomous, with the future.
Ives dismisses talk of a bubble and says the bull market will continue for another 2 years.
And moving on now, a major global outage at internet infrastructure and security company Cloudflare disrupted access to thousands of websites on Tuesday, knocking off platforms including X, Spotify and ChatGPT offline for users worldwide. The company shares dropped sharply morning trading. In a status page later, Cloudflare claimed that it has fixed the issue and is continuing to monitor for errors. The company also pointed the outage was not caused directly or indirectly by a cyber attack or malicious activity of any kind. Now, Ukraine says it will seek nearly $44 billion from Russia to compensate for the surge in climate warming emissions caused by the long-standing war between the two countries. This is the first time a country has demanded damage costs specifically for wartime carbon emissions. Kyiv may push for frozen Russian assets to cover the claim.
In addition to victims of this war, a lot of people died, but also we have our nature, we have our environmental ecosystem, and it's like silent victim of this war. We are trying to identify the legal approaches, legal mechanism, how we could make Russia accountable for all this damage.
And before we wrap, an anniversary which will make many of us feel more than a little nostalgic. Microsoft's Windows operating system turns 40 this Thursday. It's been 4 decades since Bill Gates unveiled Windows 1.0 back in the year 1985. Now remember, from floppy disks to cloud computing, from start menus to AI co-pilots, the operating system that powered the world's PCs has evolved through 11 generations and now comes with built-in artificial intelligence at its core. Listen in to Bill Gates just before this occasion.
Maybe I'll be remembered for my software prowess at a young age, but I think doubling down so people know that we can spend at an even greater rate than we are today, that's the best possible choice.
And with that, we come to an end of this edition of Morning Brief at 9. If you did, thank you so much for tuning in. But news continues on the other side of the break, so do keep watching News 9.
goat is long dead, but you are still alive. Game Cho. This is God's office calling. You're not a VIP, so God won't speak directly, but here's the deal. You have been granted a second chance with a brand new news show.
Thank you very much. Just one thing. You said 2 lives, 2 more lives. So I'll first be a newsman who wins awards, and second I'll be
Cockroach.
Better make this show last. No hurry to, be a cockroach. Let's stay here for a little while. Don't want to be a cockroach. Apparently, they have lots of issues, like being stamped upon. This is the same thing as a newsman. I mean, they're not that different.